Vanakkam, good morning. Firstly, let me say that I'm delighted to be here once again. Uh, we were here 4 years ago, just before the pandemic. Um, there has been a long gap. I know there was another event 2 years ago. That was a very short one. Uh, he, Today we are here to discuss what I think is a very, very important aspect of education, much neglected. So I am going to be in conversation with my friend Abhilash Malayil. So I believe we belong to different generations, and I hope this intergenerational exchange of ideas will benefit all of you, and it will help us to think through some of these crucial issues. So the topic of the discussion today is why should social sciences be introduced in education at a very early stage. Before we actually talk about it, I would say what is the current situation? The current situation is that not until class 11 do we really have social sciences being taught in any systematic manner. I know that there is great variation across uh, uh, state boards and the central systems of education. But from my understanding, I would say that until 10th standard, we really don't have social science education. What we have is we are taught history, which is basically a narration of dates and names and events. Then we have geography, which is basically the way it is taught, at least until the 10th standard, is a description of the physical world. Human beings rarely figure in it, not to talk about other creatures and beings, except as some kinds of objects. Then we have, this also recent, at least from my experience, it is very recent, this environmental sciences. That too is, some kind of repackaged geography to take into recent changes and fashions and trends. It's not a real understanding of. It's also very interesting that they call it environmental sciences rather than ecology. In some sense, it is without the human subjects, you are trying to study the physical environment. Then I think for a very long time we have been having something called civics. Civics basically to make our young children into docile citizens. This is the situation. You have to follow this. These are the norms. These are the systems. There are never any discussions of how the civic institutions are actually not functioning. Right? If I may, I'm not talking politics, but now we have a situation where there's a, elected chief minister of a state in prison. So these kind of situations are not discussed in the textbooks at all. It's basically follow the rules, stick to the rules. That is what we have. So in this context, why or what is your view as a younger historian who is meeting students on a day-to-day basis? You have experience both of undergraduate teaching and postgraduate teaching. What is your perception of it? First, what is the situation? I am talking basically from the Tamil Nadu experience. Can you first tell us something about what is happening in Kerala itself?
Thanks a lot, and എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. Good morning to all. Um, Indeed, I may, as an introductory note, I may have to say my thanks to the organizers of this conference and who gave me this opportunity to be here in this wonderful place. Um,
Use the mic. Yeah, use the mic.
um, what happens, I'm just taking some clues from Venkatachalapati sir, and in Kerala, in Malayalam, what we have when historians of Malayalam schooling or the Kerala schooling, when they started investigating the early strata of schooling in Kerala, they found out that the social science, the equivalent, the Malayalam equivalent of social science was Samuhya Padham. And if I can afford to have a literal translation, this is social lessons. And I think that this Samuhya Padam, the social sciences, when it was introduced first time in the first generation of schooling in Kerala, had a moral science aspect. So you have this moral science teaching both in preschool conditions, sponsored mainly by missionaries and other philanthropic institutions of the late 19th and early 20th century. You have something called this moral sciences. When the Samuhya Padam was introduced, this was imitating this already existing didactic model of moral sciences. And when you introduce or when you imitate this already existing template of moral sciences and you package social sciences into this template of moral science, you have nothing but this kind of instructionalist paradigm in which you create critical, not you create only subjects, not the critical citizens that social science now try to inculcate. As Chalapati sir rightly pointed out, even in Kerala, in the primary school, the up to 8th standard, I suppose, when I was a student, you don't have, you have a carpet social Samuhya Padam paradigm in which, as sir rightly pointed out, there's no disciplinary divisions. Rather, what you have this package of history, nothing but a chronicle of events and also certain stories which are written or drafted after kings and other personalities. Even the modern history, which are familiar to us, were also also been told in the story format. And then you have what you call the civics, which is actually Jivida Vijaya Padham. So these are the lessons which can be used for getting a successful life. So then everything, the Paura Dharmam, the responsibilities of being a good citizen, duties of being a good citizen, everything was packaged into this template of you becoming a successful individual in your life. So everything is clubbed together. So then what you have a whole social science package which is instructionalist from first to last, and which is based on inculcating or imparting morals and values. I have little more things to say about this instructionalist paradigm, but that I will take it later. Now I teach in a university, not in a school setup, in a university setup, but we, on an everyday basis, we encounter students who are casted in school level social science setting. And one important thing that I find in these days, there's a subtle but very serious process of gendering happening in our university classrooms. You have, for studying history, for studying sociology, both in the graduate and in the postgraduate level, you have 100%. The boys are disappeared. And in the Kerala universities, you have 100% female population, both as graduate student and also as postgraduate students. I don't know where these boys have disappeared and what is actually happening in this field. So with these notes, I think that Chalapati sir should say something.
We'll come to gender. We'll come to the gender question when we talk about the nature of the contentious issues that social sciences bring up. That is the real fear, right? I think the reason why educators or policy makers don't want to bring in social science at a very early stage is when they want to impart knowledge or train students into citizens, they are thinking of an order, right? What kind of order, an ideal situation should exist, but they don't want to question that order. And the fear is that social sciences would do that. So, before we come to that, can we talk of some of the disciplines that can be, introduced at a much earlier stage? Uh, we have some form of history, some form of geography, even though we have criticisms about it. What about sociology or anthropology? Anthropology is a term that I find even students at the undergraduate or even postgraduate level have no understanding of the word what anthropology is. At best, we have sociology, and now we find schools at the 11th standard introducing sociology. Then political science is something that we can think of as the core social sciences, and increasingly we find that economics as a discipline is getting more traction. Okay, so these, I would say, are there any other disciplines which you would think should be introduced at a school level? Can we bring in, say, psychology into this? Or what would be the relationship of the social sciences with the humanities? As a primarily humanities teacher, how would you see that?
Yeah. Um, I think that in the general education, in the school level education, most of the educators, as far as I can understand from the Kerala scenario, most of them work with this standard idea that this student friendly education, and this student friendliness, as far as in what happened in the Kerala scenario, it goes up to a situation where everything gets diluted. So everything gets diluted, and there's no history being taught as stories, and then you have these graduate students coming to you.
Just intervene one little bit. Remember K.M. Panikar, Sardar Panikar, when he wrote this survey of Indian history. So he said he wrote this history book because, one of his American friends told him, your history books are like telephone directories. They have only names and numbers. So that is the situation that we have to overcome, right?
Um, I think that this simplification, this whole fascination with simplification, have to be um, slightly set aside, and then the core subjects, disciplinary subjects, have to be introduced in the school, at least in the school level. There are schooling practices, the schools which are doing this. Or if you look at the global scenario, our students, when they even when our state university students, when they compete with metropolitan universities, central universities, Delhi University, JNU, and some universities in Calcutta, so there's a huge gap. So the our students, the state university students in Kerala, or the state syllabus students in Kerala or Tamil Nadu or Karnataka, when they are put into a competition in the national scale, and you celebrate your oversimplified syllabus, but these students, when they are competing with on a scale which is higher to them, and they fail, they disappear from the national or international scenario. So what I think that this core disciplinary training should be introduced into school level, and I think that students can learn, and this human being have this endless capacity of learning and training ourselves into complicated systems. So we educators often infantilize the students who come to us, in terms of justifying, in terms of simplifying, or in terms of universalizing what we understand as primary or secondary education. I think that this difficulty should be introduced into these early levels of our education, be it anthropology, be it history, or be it political science. Their theory should be introduced in the very beginning level, I suppose.
Uh, yes, you're raising a number of issues. We'll come to the question of teachers towards the end. When we talk about introducing social science at a very early stage, we have to look at the questions of pedagogy. That also brings into the play the quality and the qualifications of the teachers. That is going to be very crucial. But can we focus first on the disciplines and the tools and the methods and the knowledge that they impart? Can we can probably spend some time over this. uh, the crucial questions could be, for instance, if you are talking about sociology or anthropology or political science, the immediate issue that comes up before us is uh, we are not talking about things in the abstract, isn't it? When we talk about mathematics, it's so abstract that I stopped studying mathematics after 12th standard. So we forget something like mathematics, which is very abstract, or the physical sciences, which talk about experimentation, laws, and things like that. The moment we talk about the social sciences, when we discuss these subjects with our students, so what are we talking about? We are talking about our immediate environment, the society that is surrounding us. So, what is the challenge that this poses? How we are not talking about something that is out of us. We are talking about a situation about which we are a part, and a situation which is actually surrounding us. Right? So, what are the issues that come up when we talk about social sciences? You said you talked about gender, right? So I think that is a very important issue through which we could think. The moment you talk about gender, I talk from my experience about from teaching in Tirunelveli. That was the time when the conference in South Africa took place about reproductive rights. The moment you talk about it, it affects or it addresses the questions or issues that the students themselves are facing. You teach gender history, it immediately creates a conflict with conservative views and new radical views. So, how do we talk about society with students?
Last year, I had an opportunity to interact with intermediate level teachers. The state of Kerala, they have organized, the education ministry has organized a workshop for this intermediate level school teachers, and we had long workshops. So then when I was interacting with them, with about the status of the social science, and they make another argument. When comes to the issue of social science, introducing social science into schools, um, people make an argument that you have rightly pointed out in one of your old essays, enna prayojanam. So it's not about the immediacy of topics which social science covers that concerns people. Maybe it is a concern for educationalists and the policymakers and the bureaucrats and for the who work for the state. But for the people, the grassroots level, educators, teachers, and the parents who are directly connected to our institutions. So the first concerns that they rise, not about it's the concerns of immediacy that many of these topics, classroom topics, may kind of trigger, but they use this typical question, the standard question, enna prayojanam. What is the use of it? So they don't mind whether mathematics is abstract or the physical science is abstract or it's quasi-philosophical. But the main, all these qualitative features of physical science or the mathematical science are attributed to social science, and then they question social science with this same question enna prayojanam. So as a teacher, as a university teacher, if somebody asks these questions to me, frankly, I don't have an answer. I don't have a single answer. I don't have a ready-made answer to offer for this prayojanavadis. And I'll just listen to them, just smile at them, and nothing more than that. But this is a serious concern, and I think this question is partly justified because in this.
I think something like 20, 25, 30 years ago, in the floor of the Tamil Nadu Assembly, the statement was made that we are going to abolish all the non-utility subjects. And this was made by nobody less than the Education Minister of Tamil Nadu. So this utility question keeps coming up over and over again. And if you would notice, there is a very interesting contradiction that comes up. On the one hand, they say that it is non-utility. It means it's completely useless. It has no relevance. That is the one side. The moment you start teaching it in a relevant manner, they say we shouldn't teach it because it is very contentious. So how something can be both useless and at the same time contentious?
It's true. Every year, every government, every 5 year, we have this textbook revision. I have seen
Oh,
four.
you are far ahead of us. We do it every 30 years. Until, all our notes completely crumble into dust. We don't create new textbooks.
And this textbook revision is always an issue, which this textbook revision issue in Kerala is always a huge political debate, and I don't want to elaborate on that point. But I think that this prayojanam, the question of prayojanam, we have to answer. I think we have to address this question with slightly with some more patient. Because what I understand in our school setting, school social science packages, school social science packages are more value oriented because you impart values after values after values. So you claim that this whole package is offered to the students because they will be able to develop a kind of a perspective to handle a situation which either is already there or it's taking shape in the near future. But what we miss in this, but to take the example of other disciplines, science and mathematics, when you offer a mathematical package for students in the school classrooms, so they study mathematics and they also earn certain skills. And for the science, whether it's true or not, there's an illusion, there is a general consensus among the teachers, the students, and the parents, and this whole school discourse about this science and mathematics is that when you learn this, you earn certain skills and toolkits. But for the social science, you earn nothing but values. And then this whole, after this 70 years of inculcating values, you created a mob and which is extremely paranoid and which is extremely, which can do anything, which can go to the next structure nearby and demolish it, claiming that there was something which was there in the prehistoric or prehistoric times, and then they believe in this, the mob which believe in this retributive justice of Hammurabi. So you inculcate all these values, but you create this mob of mindless people, I suppose, in my opinion. I think that social science, as educators, as learners of social science, teachers of social science, I think that is it possible to develop a kind of toolkit at a very early
Please
stage.
don't use dangerous terms.
skills.
One of our friends
Yeah,
is
I
in
know,
real
I
trouble.
know. And certain skills that can be used for furthering your navigation or journey into the social science at a
See,
later stage.
Abhilash, you have raised a very, very important point. If I may rephrase it a little bit, the distinction between knowledge, I bring also values under knowledge, and tools, right? So, the common understanding is that when you teach these utility subjects, that is the sciences, they are not just learning something, I mean, they are not just imbibing some knowledge, some facts, but they also learn some methods and tools. So that is the understanding. So you can work out a quadratic equation, or you can dissect a frog. I suppose they have stopped it now. Or they learn certain things. You can demonstrate how a liver is used, what is a fulcrum. But this way social sciences are taught in India, with some exceptions, even at the quote unquote higher level, it still seems to be at the level of imparting just a body of knowledge or a set of facts. We're not really talking about tools, right? So, uh, can you reflect upon, or can we reflect upon, what are the tools that we can uh, we can come to know of, and the methods that we can use to further knowledge. So let us say, take up the question of knowledge itself. I don't think philosophy really comes under social sciences, but if we reframe it into a larger rubric of liberal arts, I would say that philosophy is at the foundation of everything. We would even say that without studying philosophy 101, nobody should be permitted to actually take up higher studies, because you have to understand what is knowledge before you actually acquire knowledge. But we don't really actually do that. So, apart from philosophy, that whenever we study, we want to look at what are the underpinnings of that knowledge, how that knowledge has come into being. Epistemology that our keynote speaker kept mentioning. So we find, even as educators, we are not very clear or not aware or conscious of how the knowledge that we are trying to impart has been created. So could that be a interesting or a way of approaching the question of tools and methods? Because ultimately, I think that it is the tools and methods which make a human being more as a real human being. The sense of being what you are and your place in the larger world would come up with the tools. So, what do you think are the most crucial social science tools? Apart from standard things, we could talk about social survey methods. That's not what we are doing. This is now at a very high premium at the time of elections, when psephologists are, everybody seems to be a psephologist, and when they are fumbling, they drink a glass of water. Yeah. What are the tools that you think would be crucial to start teaching young students?
I think from my own, partly or fully from my own experience, and also from the experience of the students that whom I meet, that our students should be taught at a very early stage how to express themselves of race. So the race and slavery, both in both at the both side of Atlantic, you have this people, you have this when you start the class, you have both victim and the victimized. I think that the only one, this is a very kind of romanticized solution. I think that we need to be compassionate, and I don't know what, in practical sense, how can this be orchestrated? But it seems that there everywhere there is a there. I think there is a possibility of reconciliation. So we can discuss contentious issues in the class. We can talk to our student that these are the things which where the situation in your country, in your place, at your home, at your in the universe. So you don't have any problem in teaching the students this past history of.
I think we are looking at it from the point of history. But if you look at it as a sociologist, as a political scientist, these are not in the past, they are in the present, the here and now. That is the biggest issue. So that finally brings us to the point of pedagogy. How are we going to be trained in this question? And because we are all part of it, not just the students. We are all, as teachers, as policy makers, as panel discussants, we are all part of this. So the question is the way we are going to create pedagogical methods for it, and this have to come up from our own situation. I think the kind of divisions that exist in our society, I think we are unique in that sense. The forms of oppression, the forms of the forms of oppression that we have gone through is of an entirely different order. So it's something that we'll have to face them, and as teachers figure out ways to how we are going to confront it and how we are going to train our students into looking at the social world around them.